Well, hello everybody. Randy McKee with Soccer 605 again, and we're winding up our college tour today here at South Dakota State University with Coach Lang Wedemeyer. And we want to thank you, as always, Coach, for giving us the incredible access the program gives us every time we ask. You say yes.
Well, you guys do a great job, and you and your wife are real stalwarts here in the state of South Dakota, so glad to do it.
Okay, well, you know, if there was a soccer love meter, I'm sure Carol and I would both be off it. So, well, you know, it looks to me, going up and down, talking to all the coaches, the players around the state and around the region, it really looks to me like we have, across the board, one of the best recruiting classes coming into South Dakota overall that we've seen for a long time. And I'm sure the same thing is going on here.
I think our class is great. We're really excited about not only the type of soccer players they are, but the type of people they are. And that makes a big difference to us, as it does with a lot of programs and a lot of coaches. The real test is when they get here. You just never really know. These kids, like so many before them and so many at other schools, they have great potential. And it's what they do with that potential when they get to this level that really makes a difference in the end.
Well, and you can see this as your program. You know, we've been watching your program and the others for quite a while, and you see players come in with a lot of promise, and they, you know, one of the biggest challenges that I think I see is, you know, these players that you're bringing in are, you know, often the best player in their club, the best player in their high school, maybe even the best player in their town or state. And they get into a program like this, and everybody's as good as them, only they've been here a year or two or three longer. They've been lifting. They maybe haven't gained, you know, a bunch of weight, but they've gained a lot of strength. And that's hard for these young players to come in and deal with.
Sure, and it can be, for sure. And I think, you know, everything's relative. There are times where we've had freshmen come in and make big impacts because there's been an injury to someone ahead of them. Sometimes they've really worked and earned that right to start or play a lot of minutes. And in some years it takes them a little bit of time to make that impact for one reason or another.
Yeah, and, you know, the one thing that we've been discussing with the mentality, the way that both of our Division I programs have become legitimate Division I programs, it's, you know, that is one of the marks of a legitimate Division I program, that you just can't come in as a freshman automatically, even if you're a great freshman, and just pop in there and play.
Sure. I think one of the things, kind of our bread and butter really within our program over the years has been developing players. And certainly you got to be able to recruit as well as you can to have that base and that talent and those athletes. But you know, the girls we're recruiting are hungry, they're committed, they're determined to make an impact. They want to be able to challenge themselves against the best teams and best players, especially in the Midwest. And so we use that and try to mold them and develop them and help them grow within our program.
And, you know, that's pretty evident. I mean, in this last year, you had a lot of all-conference players. I know you hate this when I bring it up, but you're one of the coaches of the year of the Summit League, which, you know, well, you know, and I like making a big deal out of it, because I remember being a state ODP coach the first week you rolled into South Dakota. You know, I remember that. So I've followed a significant part of your career. Missed out on all the early stuff, but I sure have loved the late stuff. So, you know, it's great seeing this program develop to the extent that you're churning out those great student athletes and getting the soccer recognition you deserve, not only in the Summit League but around the country.
Well, thanks.
You know, part of the success of this last year, which you had quite a bit of, was kind of surrounding a few of your core players. You know, you had a young keeper that had to step up because of injury, and she did a tremendous job for you all year. But you know, do you think that the players that are going to be graduating are going to be replaced that easily with these players that you've been developing? Because you're losing some significant power in your team.
You know, I think the three seniors that played the majority of minutes for this year, Kaylee Costello, Darcy Miller, and Megan Kingston, you don't really replace them. You may have to give someone else an opportunity in those roles, but they've got to develop their own personality, their own strengths, and that's the way it is year after year. Those players were great for us. And Stacey Guijarro had a good 2-year career. Unfortunately, she got injured towards the end, didn't play much in the conference season, but they were midfielders and forwards, and they really developed in their years here and came to a point where they were the leaders not only on the field but also off the field in a lot of ways. And I think that's what's always tough to replace as some of the intangibles, but at the same time it opens the door for other leaders to develop within your program.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that at the kind of players you're recruiting, most of them have a pretty big personality anyway. Mm-hmm. And there's probably several of them, waiting in there to get in and do that job. Mm-hmm. So speaking of recruiting, you've been around the country. You've you've got a lot of really good players, plus one that we've been very close to over her club and high school career. So why don't we go on down the list and you can talk about the girls that are coming on board.
Sure. Well, we'll start with Nicole Hatcher from Sioux Falls, our lone South Dakota recruit this year. Nicole's been someone that certainly we've known about for quite a while and been watching, as a lot of people have, and we think that there's some good players coming out of South Dakota this year. Honestly, we feel like she's the best, and the fact that we've been able to get her here at South Dakota State is a big plus for us. I think that she has a great mix of not only being a tremendous athlete, good basketball player, good soccer player, strong, fast, physical, but there's also she's also pretty soccer savvy. I mean, she's a good soccer player and understands the game fairly well, and is one of the best finishers I've ever seen. And then she's also pretty tough, and that helps. So I think that that combination of qualities is really going to make her dynamic at the college level.
The last couple years, especially this last year, I've noticed a dramatic increase in her physicality in the game. And like we see so many young players at 14, 15 who have her kind of stuff. A lot of times other teams will throw some physical play at them and they don't seem to like it, but this last year Nicole was taking it to them, and that was really great to see, because that meant to me she'd matured a lot as a player.
Sure. And that's going to be a big key for her coming in the college game, because it is more physical and it is tougher, and there's a psychological edge to that when teams are trying to throw you off your game. So the freshmen, if they're able to handle that, the sooner the better, and they make the greatest impact early on.
I talked to Nicole the other day and asked her, what do you think you're going to have to do to elevate your play to get some minutes? And she was spot on. Every single thing that she knew she needed to do, she said, we're getting our workouts next week. I can't wait to get on there, and I can't wait to show up and perfectly fit. And so, she's chomping at the bit. So that's great to see. Mm-hmm. And by the way, she was our Elite 11 Player of the Year. So
right.
So we agree quite a bit with you on that quality.
Sure.
Okay, who's next then?
Well, we've got Bianca Madonia. She's from the Chicago area, has been playing with Chicago Sockers at ECNL, helped her high school team to do all kinds of awards and recognition. She's like 5 foot tall, but is real creative on the ball. Probably best as like an attacking mid, could play up front. She does a little of both between high school and club, and quick, agile, and just very creative player. And so we really like some of the things. I mean, she's doing things where she's nutmegging players and flipping the ball over people's heads and running around them. And she's small, and so it looks like you're going to just kind of push her off the ball, but she's quick enough to kind of get out of those things. So I think that she's going to give us a little bit of that creativity within her midfield that we may have been missing in the past.
Well, and coming out of that Chicago area, the one thing is she's in an ECNL, especially the Sockers. But those kids have been competing every minute of every day for a long time, and so they're not shy about it. They jump right in and go.
Right. Samantha Kep, she's our newest California girl. Played with the Pleasanton Range, out in that area, kind of between, just outside of San Francisco area there, and she's one that really kind of fell to us. I mean, she came to our camp. She's got family here. Her father grew up in southwest Minnesota, and so a lot of her uncles and cousins and aunts and those types of things are still in the area. And she was actually just here visiting and asked if she could come over and tour the campus. And we said, well, we got camp started the next day. Why don't you come over? She came over for a day, and we thought she was fantastic. And so she just, we had to convince her a little bit to come in the cold weather, but she's really looking forward to it. And she's a very technical type of player, but athletic enough that she can play in a lot of places, anywhere through the midfield, probably anywhere through the back. And again, I think someone that's been playing in the ECNL, so she's going to have a lot of good background as far as making that competitive leap.
And over the last few years, I've talked to a lot of players who grew up in warm weather, California, Texas, Florida, who have come here. And almost universally, they go, well, the weather did concern me, but when I got to Brookings or Sioux Falls or Vermilion, I just felt connected with the town. And when I sat down and talked with the team, I felt like I was already part of a family there. And I think that's something that, is difficult, an environment to get in California or Texas or Florida.
Sure. I think so. And I think that really, ultimately, the people is what sells a place like South Dakota State. And not just the team, but the administrators and the teachers and the advisors and the secretaries and the lunch lady and those types of things. It is such a great environment. And ultimately, a lot of these girls chose to come to South Dakota State because of that feel.
Yeah. And, I'm sure it hasn't helped or it hasn't hurt. The last few years having the South Dakota State basketball teams, for instance, get some games on national television. And last year I remember watching some of those games, and the commentators are going, "Wow, these people from South Dakota State, they're fighters. They want to play." That's got to help a lot too.
Absolutely. So then the rest of the five are all from Minnesota. So we've got three girls from the Minnesota Thunder ECNL team. One, Tori Poole, tough forward type of player, great attacker. She was a player last year, came into our camp, and really you could tell she was already mature enough to start to play with the college players even a year ago. And did a great job. So I think she's going to be someone that can give us some help up front and score some goals for us. Her teammate Amber Greeley, someone that was with the U14 national team at that early age group, and she played mostly forward, but we think that she's probably versatile enough to maybe move into midfield, even maybe even further back. And she's one that has a lot of potential because she's strong and she's physical. She's a good ball winner. She's good on the ball, so she can play pretty much everywhere. And then lastly, one of their teammates, Jenny Sislo, is someone that kind of fell into our lap. Someone you interviewed at our ID camp a little while back. And she's one that multi-sport athlete, basketball, track, soccer, thought she might go to a smaller school to be able to do more sports, realized that her passion was really with soccer, wanted to play at the highest level possible, and just heard great things about SDSU, and kind of last minute fell into our lap. So
that's fantastic.
Three great girls, great program, have played all over the country at the highest levels, and joined a few of their other former NTA teammates like Maddie Ewell that's already here. So we're excited about all three of those girls.
It's kind of neat to see too that at USD they have some players coming out of these same exact teams and clubs and teams. And talking with Brock earlier, he said, well, yeah, that happens about every year, but isn't that great how those girls can get on the field and have been teammates, but they compete to the bone, but then as soon as that whistle blows, then they're teammates again.
Sure.
It's just like almost universal.
The last two, Emily Sutliff and Julia Lamb, both come from Dakota Rev. Another very strong program. They were coached by Toby Thorsel there, who's done a great job with that program. Really brought Dakota Rev up to the higher stages in Minnesota State soccer, competing for state cups and those types of things. So those girls are good. She's a Spitfire. She's another one kind of like Bianca, about 5 feet tall, plays a defensive midfield role mostly, can run from box to box, can kind of control the rhythm of play. And then Emily is usually a flank player. She either plays kind of a wide wing or a flank midfield player. Fast, tough, doesn't back down from anything, can run up and down the sidelines and take players on one-on-one. So she'll fit into our system very well because we do a lot of our attacking from the flanks.
Well, and it looks to me like, you brought in more players that are going to fit your program. And, we were talking earlier today with one of the coaches about the difference in the type of soccer that so many teams play. You're seeing this more and more, and it's not soccer that I like to watch, but dump and bang it forward and try to get a 1v1 up top. But, I mean, the objective is to score goals.
Sure.
And if you can get goals that way, I guess that's how you do it. But it just seems to me like year after year after year, your girls play soccer. And you bring in players who can play soccer and who like to play soccer. And I think from a player's perspective, you could probably tell us more than anybody about that. But don't you think that the players like to get out there and play soccer instead of packing it in or banging it forward?
Sure, I think so. And I think that the nice thing is it's a continuation of what a lot of their club teams are trying to do.
Yeah.
More and more clubs are trying to play good soccer, and they're trying to teach the players how to work the ball out of the back, to be good technically, to be able to pass the ball and dribble and do all of those things. And so when they come here, it's really a continuation of a lot of what their club teams are already doing. Now, maybe in a little different way. Their roles may be a little different. The emphasis in certain areas are going to be different that they have to make those adjustments for. But by and large, we try to play as good of a style of game as we're capable of doing.
Well, and we've been really happy watching that. We're, again, and I don't want to bring up a competing school, but one of the things that I'm really liking is, I grew up back in the days and actually was an athlete when there was a legitimate fight every single game, every single year between USD and SDSU. And now that they're D1 and they're doing a job at, reeling the rest of the schools in, I think that's going to become a more significant battle every year.
Sure. Well, Mandy and Josh have done a great job down there. They didn't start with the easiest of tasks in rebuilding that program, but they're competitors and they recruit hard and they travel all over the place to try to find the best players, and so it's good and bad. It's a good competition. It's a healthy competition. We have a lot of respect for one another, but they're going to give us a run for our money every year, and so it's recreating a rivalry that had gone away for a number of years. And I think our players are starting to buy into it. In the past, it was, in that transition, it was just really us and North Dakota State, because we kind of made the jump at the same time, and that rivalry really grew in those years. And now you can see it starting to shift a little bit the other way. It's still there with NDSU, of course, but there's plenty of room for USD in that mix too.
Well, and like I was mentioning earlier, I remember your first week in South Dakota, and I remember what soccer was like in South Dakota then, and especially college soccer. And I am so happy to point out that the gains that we've made in the state, the quality, in having somewhere excellent to aim, is very much attributable to South Dakota State program, and you. And so I am I love all soccer anyway, but I'm really a big Lang fan. There are some of you coaches that I make no secret about liking so much, but you're kind of the foundation of the college scene in South Dakota, and you're not an old guy yet, but one of these decades you will be, and we'll probably be putting your picture over in a corner somewhere.
Well, you got to give some credit to people like Steve Kem in Northern, and some of those people, and some of the stuff that happened at NAU out in Rapid City, and with Luis, and even Ronnie Tice, who was doing some things, and yourself laying the groundwork with a lot of the youth training, and people like you that just have that passion for the game, that were spending hours upon hours without any pay, without much recognition, helping grow the game. And so that's really where it started, was with a lot of you guys. And I came in at a pretty good time where there was a lot of momentum building, and I've been fortunate enough to reap some of those benefits.
Well, and you sure have, and you've taken a situation and you've made it better for a lot of kids, and you made it better for the state. And I want to acknowledge that, because you certainly deserve the accolades. Well, we're on to the to the next signing day activity. It's been a busy day for us. I think, we're planning by the end of the day to have somewhere around 6 hours of content put up for signing day. So we, as always, appreciate the access you give us to your program and to yourself, and thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for watching.